Following is a conversation with Noam Fine, who is a serial entrepreneur. He's founded 4 companies in the past, the most recent of which was Over.ai, which sold to Vonage in 2019. He left Vonage in 2023 to create his latest company, Hear.ai. Hear.ai is, you could describe it as a conversational intelligence platform. I think you might be doing it a disservice if you called it that, because it seems to do a whole lot more based on the conversation that's coming up. We talk together about the transformative potential of generative AI in the contact center and how generative AI essentially is enabling new mindsets beyond incremental improvements, and it's really enabling transformative change. But it doesn't have to enable transformative change in a way that you might think. It doesn't mean that you have to lift and shift everything out of your contact center and implement a whole new bunch of systems. Instead, the Hear.ai platform allows you to get insights and value from the conversations that you're having in the contact center without changing pretty much anything. So you can have the transformative potential without actually touching your core infrastructure. Because most contact centers are just black boxes, let's face it. Most of the conversations that happen in call centers are just recorded, probably on a server somewhere that never get listened to. Quality assurance people might listen to 1 in every 10,000 calls, which is not representative at all. And the data that exists in the rest of the 9,999 calls might be incredibly valuable and totally overlooked. And so the transformative potential is to leverage the data that you have in those conversations that currently are probably just going from the mouth of the customer into the ears of the agent and then lost in the ether forever, and turning those conversations into valuable conversations for the business. We talk about that value exchange being a customer value exchange, because most of the time in a business, a call center is agents giving value to customers through services and delivering value and giving them what they want. But what about customers giving value to the business through insights? And that's kind of what we are talking about here, is how can you turn those conversations into insights that you can use to improve the business, to become the best version of yourself. There's also another value exchange, which is that contact centers are usually cost centers in businesses. They are drains, essentially. So we talk about how can you turn a contact center into a radiator, something that gives back to the business, and going from being a cost center to a profit center, a growth center, and a value center. We talk about the technical architecture of Hear.ai, and it's interesting enough because it's got a mixture of small language models, large language models, open source models, fine-tuned models, each of which are performing very specific tasks, and each of which are being finely tuned and crafted to be able to perform those tasks effectively. And so we talk about how to make decisions around which models to use, what they're actually doing. And also we touch on agentic AI as well, because the platform is using agentic AI to do things like you can just ask for some insights for from some conversations that have never been asked for before, and an agent will go away, do the analysis, and produce you a report on the fly that gives you exactly what you asked for. And we talk about empowering managers, empowering leaders to be able to make decisions, to make just strategic decisions that are going to add value to the business, as well as the future of where the contact center is going and the future of generative AI in the contact center as well. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation as much as I did, because it was absolutely immense. Here is Noam Fine, CEO of Hear.ai. Noam Fine, how are you, my friend?
I'm very good. Thank you very much.
Long time no see.
4 years.
4 years. And we were just saying it is 4 years to the day today, as of when this is recorded, that you were first on the VOX World podcast, 15th of January, 2021.
And a lot has happened. It's actually pretty crazy how much could happen in 4 years.
I know.
Technology, world dynamics, everything is shifting. But mostly technology. I think when we spoke then, AI was kind of an innovative buzzword, a new terminology, relatively new terminology in our space, right? Now it's the only 2 letters to use.
I know. Yeah, exactly. It was, well, having said that, when we first spoke, I think you had recently been acquired by Vonage from Over.ai. Was it recent? How recent was it in 2021?
It was pretty recent.
Yeah. So you've recently been acquired. We were talking about the Over.ai platform, which was then now the Vonage platform, which is now Vonage AI Studio. And I think even so, there was organizations that were fairly mature in terms of their usage of AI. Obviously, it was more machine learning based, kind of like NLU models and stuff like that, which is obviously what Over.ai was specializing in, that sort of like conversational orchestration piece. But I think that obviously since 2022, when large language models hit kind of mainstream finally, it all seems to have kind of blown up. So I imagine that your world has changed dramatically since 2021.
It has changed dramatically for multiple reasons, but we've left. And when I say we, it's myself and my co-founder at Here, Joseph, was also my co-founder at Over.ai. We've left Vonage around a year and a half ago to start Here. So starting a new venture, and part of the motivation, a large part of the motivation, was actually the technology that's emerging. Everything generative AI, wanting to engage only with this technology. We're a little bit of geeks in that perspective, so we get too excited for better or worse. And I think, and when this only started to emerge, you started seeing all kinds of wild implementations, stuff that blows your mind, gets you inspired, your imagination starts working, and the feeling that if you're not only engaged with that technology, you're going to be left behind because it is very fast moving.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, definitely that was part of the motivation. So we've started this new venture. It's definitely interesting, challenging, like any new venture, but super exciting.
Mm, definitely, and I think like we'll definitely want to learn about Here AI and what you're doing there. But going back to what you were saying there in terms of when you first discover the AI, this kind of new technology, it's kind of transformative, and you can imagine all the possibilities with it. Also, though, there is the realities that we kind of, I suppose, learned a little bit when we first spoke, because at the time I was kind of just coming out of being like really heavily involved in building out Amazon Alexa skills and stuff like that, and it was a very similar situation there, which is that the potential of this technology or that technology and this technology is huge. But the difference between what's theoretically possible or what you can build in your bedroom versus what you can actually get deployed in a large enterprise with significant risk and significant customer volume is kind of a little bit different. So I'm curious about, like, as you started to play around with generative AI, and obviously there's huge possibilities and it can do all kinds of potential things, but making it work reliably for an enterprise that's running hundreds of thousands, millions of conversations and contacts a week or a month or a year, it's kind of a different ball game, isn't it? So where did you start in the creation of Here, going from that this technology could be amazing, its potential is huge, but actually we want to make something that's actually going to move the needle for businesses?
So that's a great point. One of the biggest challenges that we're seeing is implementing LLMs and generative AI in production for something that's supposed to work in large scale. And I think when you look overall at our vertical, business communication, contact centers, but also when you look outside across technology, I don't think there's many live implementations of LLM and generative AI that are effective today. A lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of startups are looking into this, but seeing something that works in scale is definitely, you can see many examples. And reason is, turns out that this is something that is super challenging. We started, I think to start a company, to start a startup, you need to be pretty naive or a dreamer.
Mm.
So, and then you don't see the faults, right? You don't see the challenges. Just go like, wow, this is cool. It's probably gonna work instantly and like be super easy. It's gonna be incredible tomorrow. Um, and then reality hits, and you understand that there's lots of challenges. I think today's or existing closed source solutions, the open AIs, the Anthropic, the APIs that you have there make it very easy to prototype and to start. But I mean, in reality, when you're taking stuff to production, and also given cost and given scale of the kind of businesses that we work with, and privacy concerns and all of that, you quickly find out that also you need to look at other solutions that are out there, open source, fine tuning your own LLM, and eventually, and maybe we'll get to that later. But we do work with our own LLM, and that we fine tuned, and not a closed source solution.
Right. Um, so tell us what it's there for then. What does Here AI actually do for those that have never come across it before?
So yeah, let's maybe start with the kind of like problem or challenges that we saw in the industry today. I
Mm-hmm.
think obviously a lot of AI adoption from our earlier days, previous technologies, existing technologies. So we're seeing a lot of technology coming in. We're seeing a lot of adoption of new techniques, right? From AI agents, agent assist. So the contact center space is evolving and adjusting. I think what we're seeing at the same time is that technologies are mainly implemented to allow incremental improvements across the operation, mostly around efficiency. And moreover, I think what still remains a fact is that the contact center operation is sort of a one-way street between the organization or your company and the customer. And what I mean by that is that me as a company, I'm investing a lot of resources, money, IT, headcount, whatever, all this complexity that we know from our space, incredible complexity, in order to kind of like keep customers as happy as possible. So I'm doing all that investment, but I'm not actually getting anything in return. And that's a bit of an anomaly. Usually you invest resources into something that's supposed to help you grow, expand your business. Of course, happy customers are good for you, right? And are returning customers. But we think that today's technology can allow this to be a two-way street. So we're moving from the trend, I think, is moving from CX to what we call CVX, the customer value exchange. I will help you get what you need. In return, if I'm able to listen to you, better understand you in a more granular way, and I'll explain this in a minute, I'm also able to get value from you. I know what's the feature that you're interested in. I know what you're not happy about the product that you're currently getting, or maybe features that you're not using. I know what you're willing to pay for, and maybe something that doesn't exist, and I should offer it. And I know if I'm having any upsell opportunities. So, and these are just a few examples. Today, this is not information that we're getting from customers, again, because in reality, the contact center space is still a little bit of a black hole in terms of what's actually going on. You could have 500 agents, 1,000 agents, 10,000 agents. What are they talking about? And to support this claim, if you go to the contact center, what you'll see is you'll see a lot of manual listening on calls being done for every possible reason. If I want to understand what's going on, or like the topics people are called for, I'll sample a few calls, listen. I'll have an analyst or 2 or 10, listen, tag them, understand what's going on. When we do the agent evaluation, we'll do manual listening. Agents will manually tag their calls and log into the CRM. Compliance teams, huge compliance teams that will sit in and listen on calls. All of these are different, factors and units in the contact center that are still doing manual listening to kind of like try and understand what's going on.
And a lot of that listening as well is it's to understand what's going on, yes, but a lot of the kind of like end result of that stuff ends up being, for example, with agents who are on calls, they're listening to the call. It's only a one-to-one relationship, so it's not like that information is going to go anywhere else apart from in the heads of the person who's listening to it. And the only information really that the business will get off the back of that, apart from a transcript which gets stored over here somewhere and never seen again, is whatever the disposition code is that's logged at the end. And we were doing some work recently and found that what an agent logs versus what the actual customer need was, there's at least a 30% swing. So 30% of all of your data is completely irrelevant. It might not necessarily impact hugely your big, high-hitting, heavy-ticket items, but when it comes to the sort of long tail and the kind of like, 20% of volume that's complex, trying to get a handle on what that looks like and what it really was about, or maybe some calls were actually about 3 different things, but the only thing that was logged was the one that was the most salient. There's so much information from calls that has just completely gone into that black box, as you say, because of the fact that it's a one-to-one relationship and it's going from the mouth of one human into the ears of another human, and it's not being captured anywhere.
And also, if that person is there for a specific task, so for example, I'm calling in to update my address, right? I'll call and I'll say, hey, I just need to update my address in my account, and maybe the agent will just help me get this done. But as part of the conversation, I said, hey, I have a new baby born, and we were moving to a newer, to a bigger place. somewhere else. This is why I need to update my address. There is something that should be offered for this person because he has, an event happen. But this will not, nobody will ever know about it unless you're able to really granularly analyze this call. And most of the platforms out there today would not know to look for that specific item. We're still looking at high level, almost meaningless matrix. If we're looking at sentiment, which is something that's been talked about in our industry for ages, you need to know the customer sentiment, but you need to have the customer sentiment in context. If I know that most customers are not happy, why are they not happy? In relating to which service or product and what happened and what's the ratio, and maybe there is a segment of the population. Like, unless you're able to drill down to that case, sentiment by itself is not actionable and is not helpful. So it's all about getting stuff that is actionable for you. Another thing that's typical is that what we're seeing, you'll be able to see two companies, two businesses doing, they're in the same sector, same vertical, same product. They're both in mobile, right? So, like a mobile carrier or a service provider. They will have completely different strategies, how they grow, how they want to serve their customers, their marketing campaigns, all of that. So by definition, they're interested in different stuff, even though they're in the same business. We need to enable that for them. So I've been talking a lot about these concepts, but actually you start by asking what is it that we do, and essentially this is what we do. We allow our customers to see with high precision, granularly, exactly what customers are talking about. They can look for any parameter, ask any question around it, build any report that they need around this data. But it's not anything that is rigid. It's something that they can simply ask using natural language, define reports using natural language, access any piece of data that they want that's within these interactions.
Nice. Now, I might be jumping ahead a little bit here, but something you said earlier kind of stuck out a little bit, because I've heard similar things previously from other companies where they're talking about stuff like, there is a major life event happening. The example of someone's moving house. Let's say that you are let's say that you're a mortgage provider is probably a bad example because the conversation might be about porting the mortgage or something like that. But there might be something relevant about a life activity. For example, I don't know, maybe you're a retailer and somebody says something like, I want to return this item because it doesn't fit my nephew, right? All of a sudden there's some insight there now. This person's got a nephew. The clothes that they bought are for a certain age range, so we can infer that the nephew's a certain age, and therefore there's a bit of information there. Now, whether you want to use that information as rigorously as you could do, which is in 6 months' time, drop them another message about buying your nephew a present or whatever, but there's some information still that could potentially be used in kind of going forward. And another example I've kind of come across in the past is that, like, say, for example, an example that was given to me was, let's say that you're a local government and you collect like big bulky items, like someone's just got a new fridge or a new, washing machine or whatever, and they've asked you to come and collect it and they've paid you to collect it. And then they call up and they say, I'm sorry, can you not collect it on Saturday because I'm busy with my son's football? Could it be Sunday instead? So now you've got another bit of information, which is they've got a son. The other bit of information is that Saturday mornings are a no-go. So you might not necessarily use that information for anything kind of specific, but you might just, next time they interact with you, you might just not offer them a Saturday morning appointment because you know that there's something done there. So the question is, and it goes back to this concept I've been writing a lot about and researching a lot about recently, which is the concept of agency versus rules. So it seems to me as though to do that at scale, you'd need to write a shed ton of rules to be able to understand all of these different things and how it actually impacts the business. So, or you could do something perhaps a little bit more agentic, which gives the LLMs and the generative AI a bit more autonomy to be able to make decisions about information that it hears and store that in a certain way. How do you approach doing something like that example you just said, where there's a bit of information that comes from a conversation that usually would be completely brushed under the carpet and forgotten, but it might be pertinent in future? How do you go about kind of doing that? Because it's quite dynamic, isn't it? It's not predictable.
Yes. I think that's exactly where our platform is different, being able to tackle exactly this unpredictable kind of data that might be interesting. Um, First of all, where we find a lot of interest and we invest a lot of effort is in the aggregated level data for these cases. What you've described is yes, let's know this customer, let's understand, let's keep this kind of data and maybe log it into the CRM. So next time when we want to create have some sort of action or delivery to that person, we will not do this on the weekend. That's on a single call, single interaction, single customer case. What I want to query the platform or better understand as a manager is, okay, I want to implement a new delivery strategy. When is it best to send out deliveries, or how should I structure this? How many of my customers, and this is me as a manager using the platform, how many of my customers are no-go for the weekend and do not want to get deliveries on the weekend? And so there's two challenges there. One, being able to identify this unpredictable piece of data, and second is analyzing this massive amount of data that we have in our organization, receiving, again, I don't know, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 calls a day around this. So I'm having millions of calls across everything. How do I analyze these vast amount of data? So, and we have taken the agentic approach where autonomous AI agent will know to understand your query, go and analyze calls, go and on their own update the databases, and get back to you with an effective answer for that kind of query. So
Right.
we're able to analyze the single interaction and also the aggregated level of data.
So say that again then. Am I understanding this correctly? That you have the agent will on demand run analysis on calls to extract the insights on aggregate that you're asking for. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, correct. There's a process that happens before that, which is our platform already it does personalization on the organization level and on the role level or user level, which means once you onboard a new customer, it learns from different resources, either external or internal for the organization, what are their interests, right? The nature of the business, the nature of their customers. It will also, every user on our platform, which is typically the managers, the contact center managers, once they on board, they will also describe their role in the organization, their interests, their responsibilities. The platform knows to conclude based on that what might interest the organization as a whole and the specific persona. And we'll already pre-built these databases to kind of like fit the predicted interest that we'll find. But still, there's obviously the unpredictable insights that we'll be looking for. And you understood correctly. Once we meet one of these, agents will go ahead and perform the actions on the actual platform to deliver the answer that you need.
Right.
And do it autonomously.
So the stuff that you're talking about at the beginning, where you're setting up at in the first instance, the data, I suppose, that would be like readily available out of the box, if you like. That's all stuff that you've kind of predefined, and it's all built in the platform, using traditional programming techniques, presumably. Not necessarily to put the data into where it needs to be and to do the reporting, but in terms of like defining what it is that the data is that we're going to kind of like analyze, first of all. But then there is the agentic part, is the piece where there is something that is outside the scope of what you've predefined. Somebody's asking a question, like, for example, what dates are my customers better off having deliveries? And that might be something that's predefined. And therefore, at that moment in time, you have a program that will essentially run through, analyze some conversations, do a bunch of analysis to figure out when that stuff was spoken about, and then cluster based on things talking about Saturday mornings being unavailable. Is that correct?
Exactly. And maybe I can add one other layer of coolness around it. So not only will it do this, but it will also help you implement strategy. And I think this is something that's entirely new in the contact center, because right now, if you want to implement organizational strategy, let's say we've talked about mobile operators. Let's say you want to push on a bundle deal, right? The company as a whole, if you're using their mobile services, they want you to buy also connectivity and TV or something like that. Right now, if this is brought to the contact center, there is no way to essentially, like, what do you do, right? There's
Mm.
no way to kind of like enforce or execute on something like that. With our platform, if there's with the reasoning capabilities, what you'll do is you'll upload the relevant document, let's say, around this, and what the organization wants to do. Platform on the back end will reason, will understand how to implement this across the different functions, create the reports that you might want to track. That might be how many people are calling around about just TV, just the mobile service, internet connectivity, and so on. Should an offer be made for these customers? Is the offer being taken? What's the objections that you might be meeting when offering this to customers? And you'll get this entirely new set of reports being generated for you to help you implement that strategy and the visibility to see what's happening. So now you're part of the organization instead. That actually helps growth, right? You can implement the high level strategy and grow with the organization. And this taps again to the concept of CVX when the company gets value from these interactions with customers.
Mm. So let me make sure I'm understanding that correctly then. So there is, let's say, a new product or service that is offered, that is documented in some way, shape, or form. That documentation that describes it can be put into the system. The system will then, based on the nature of that product or service, use its intelligence and reasoning, etc., to be able to then define what kind of KPIs would matter based on that, and then how it can report on it, as well as start to understand, based on customer conversations, which types of customers would be more likely to go for that product or service based on previous history or current products. Am I understanding that correctly, or have I got something wrong there?
No, I think you're absolutely right. What do you think?
Wow. Well, if it works like that, then yeah, it sounds bloody fantastic.
It it does work, and it's pretty cool, and something that we've mentioned briefly before. I think that's why I keep mentioning how we talked about generative AI being a transformative technology, and the implementations that we're seeing now for AI overall and generative AI. Um, like I said before, it's mainly used to enable these incremental changes and efficiencies. We're offering agent assist to quickly onboard to make agents a little bit more effective, maybe a little bit quicker. So we're getting that incremental value. But transformative technology also, I think, demands that you will also try and think different, come up with new methodologies on how you work, understand that it's going to affect other aspects of your operation, and with that, adopt new ways of working. And this is one of them, what we've just discussed now.
Interesting. Well, I think there's two. I think the two interesting bits. One is, I think, the dynamic creation of reports based on ad hoc variables that weren't part of the original spec, if you like, and the other is the ability to do that kind of introduction of a new product or service and be able to ascertain what the KPIs should be, what the common objections might be, how to spot that, how to deal with that, feeding that into the process so that agents are immediately armed with what those objections might be and how you can handle them, and then your KPIs are defined. That's a really interesting situation. How have you kind of done that sort of stuff then? Because like when we first started talking, I was under the impression that Hear.ai is a conversational intelligence platform similar to maybe a Symbol AI or Observe or something like that. There's lots of companies out there that do similar stuff in terms of gaining insights from conversations. It seems as though, from hearing you speak so far, Here is different from the perspective of the platform itself utilizes generative AI in order to make the platform more valuable. therefore to enhance the ability for it to deliver value to its users. So how have you managed to integrate? Because presumably you're using some generative AI or some language models on the conversation analysis bit, but you're also using it in the platform itself to do the things that we've just mentioned. So how have you approached constructing the architecture such that you can leverage generative AI for what it's good for, whilst having it make sure that it's kind of like, reliable, so to speak? Like, could you describe how you've approached the sort of architecture of what you've done there?
Okay. There's multiple questions in one question here, so I'll
Yeah,
try
yeah.
and break it down. First of all, just like a quick note about reliability. What we do and understanding that, and I think that's a major issue when you go to our events and stuff, you hear a lot about that and the fear from hallucinations and so on, reliability of these models. What we've done is we're deploying redundancy between models. So we're verifying each result between two different LLMs to kind of like make sure that we're getting our answers right and that there is no hallucinations there in the process. The architecture is indeed complex. And going back to the beginning of our conversation, we thought it wouldn't be, but apparently there's need for that. And when building the architecture, we've also and there's other aspect to it. By the way, beyond reasoning, there's best practices and regulations that were ingested into the LLM and for fine tuning purposes, all the different guardrails that you need to have in place, and all of these are brought into account as part of the platform. It does create a very significant challenge. There is a mix of large language models and also smaller models that are task specific in the platform and in the architecture to achieve that. And also mentioned that before, to achieve that in a way that is cost efficient, because I think that's also key. This could become very pricey, in other formats. So yeah, it's definitely a challenging task. It's that's kind of like our day to day on the technical side. It's what we're constantly challenged with.
And could you kind of elaborate a little bit on like how you make a decision for when to use a large language model versus when to use a small language model, and what are the major tasks that those things are doing in nature?
So you've mentioned the difference between analyzing conversations on the LLM. All the other tasks for the agentic platform and AI as part of the platform is handled by the smaller models. So they're task specific, and we'll perform them. And to be efficient, to be cost efficient, to be quick, we'll use the smaller models there. The large language models are typically used to analyze the actual interaction data.
Right. And when it comes to doing things like the creation of these dynamic reports and stuff like that, presumably there is something happening whereby if I ask a query that hasn't been asked before and I want to know some information that's not a standard thing that you've been set up to capture, and you have an agent that goes through and goes and analyzes that and finds that and retrieves that back, is that stored somewhere so that I can report on that again in future? And if so, where is the decision being made about how to create that data, how to create the interface in the platform? Is all of that stuff, practical stuff in terms of delivering the data on the front end and then storing it for future use, is all of that stuff being generated by models, or is all of that stuff where the models will hand over to more kind of like predefined programming and you'll do it that way?
It's all handled by the models. What we're aspiring to do, sorry. What we're aspiring to do is deliver very simple, intuitive interfaces. So there's a couple things I want to say about that, but like one of the goals is delivering simple, intuitive interfaces. That serves two reasons. First of all, we're familiar with the kind of interfaces that you can usually see in contact center solutions. I could never figure this out. Immediately when I see these, I can't use it. And I think the same applies to other platforms. Any kind of like CRM that you have to start learning from scratch, or complex BI systems. Maybe it's just me, right? But I think they're very hard to adopt.
Mm.
And when not only me, I think when everybody saw the magic in ChatGPT, what's the magic there? No UI and everything that you need, right?
Mm.
And that translated into mass adoption instantly by, in a matter of days by everybody. So we want to bring that into the contact center, and also we do this because we want to interact with different kind of personas and roles in the contact center. If typically analytics is part of is an analyst job, or the BI team, or somebody that is very specific for this task, and you as a manager, you need to go and ask for that report, maybe produced, maybe it can't be produced, or but you're constantly asking for stuff. We want to empower managers to have that decision-making tool and access to data easily accessible using a simple interface that they all access. With that, they become different managers, right? So when they have access to data that's under like in their fingertips, they can do their job entirely different.
Mm.
So it's not only because we do not like complex interfaces, we want to encourage adoption. We want to empower managers to have that access to data. With that being said, I think something that everybody's also experienced, and maybe you need to get a little bit into the generative AI mindset of how you access data like that, right? How do you chat with ChatGPT? How do you refine your query? So that's something that our users learn a little bit over time.
Mm.
That's to answer your question. You'll start querying what you'll see on our interface. You'll start asking questions. If you see something interesting, you can simply say the way that you'd say to ChatGPT or any other similar service. You'd say, "Hey, create a report for this," and this report will be there, is tracked. If there is going to be trend or anything interesting around it, it will be surfaced, so it's proactive. But everything done really simply by chatting. Again, there's learning curve, but it is a healthy one. I think as an organization, as a company, I would want my managers, if they're not using ChatGPT, if they do not know how to interact with generative AI and refine a little bit and get it's a thought process
Mm.
that's working with these tools. I would want them to get into this mindset because this is how work is going to be done in the future.
Mm. Absolutely.
So I think there's indirect value there, kind of like empowering managers to use these tools more.
Yeah. And you mentioned at the top of the show there that you have some of your own models, or at least fine-tuned, presumably open source models.
Mhm.
Now, as the large language models get more sophisticated, one of the things that I'm kind of wrestling with is like, what's the use of small language models and fine-tuned language models if big models get more and more capable over time, aside from expense, which will be coming down anyway, and performance, which I imagine will also come speed up. So why did you decide that you had to fine-tune your own models versus using one of the pretty capable models that are available already?
Um, yeah, models are getting better all the time. Same as with the open source models that they're being released, and you get better models all the time for that too. And we keep fine-tuning new models all the time. Reason we do it is because, and not sure if I've mentioned this, but first of all, performance and accuracy, we outperform the closed source models. Privacy, or should I say privacy? And this is something that's key for working in our space. You cannot send customer information to a third party. You want to be able to be GDPR compliant. You want to be able to host in your locality. All these different parameters. So important that we host the LLMs, and cost efficiency, despite closed source models slashing cost all the time, year after year, it is still not enough if you want to support the incredible amount of data that we were seeing from customers. So it needs to be cost efficient. If a service like that would cost you $1 zillion, you will not implement this as good as it is. You need to
Mm.
have ROI in place. So it needs to be something that makes sense. So cost is also a big factor there.
Right. And you mentioned ROI there. it sounds as though the platform is capable of doing quite a lot of stuff. Presumably there's some out of the box stuff that you mentioned. I know you're kind of talking on the website there in terms of like reducing churn and compliance and risk monitoring and stuff like that. Maybe as we can cover at a high level, what are some of those kind of key out of the box use cases? And then secondly, what kind of ROI or outcomes are your clients seeing through using it?
So there's, I guess there's direct and indirect ROI. ROI in terms of, I think most immediate is everything that has to do with automation. We can automate. We talked about obviously the summarization and categorization and topic extraction and all that stuff from conversations. But we can go more granularly, add more information to the CRM, get a better view of the customer interaction, automating this. You've mentioned that the low accuracy of the human factor there when tagging this. So lots of value in actually having precise data that is accurate in your CRM, so you can produce stuff based on that. That's most immediate. Everything around operational efficiency, from first call resolution to other parameters that you want to to help to track in order to help increase efficiency. It's all there. Removing entirely the outdated manual listening on calls, freeing up managers' time, freeing up compliance teams' time. Talking about compliance, by the way, companies are sampling calls. If they catch something, they'll try and fix it. The value of actually only listening in on calls that are non-compliant and being able to treat these before this escalates into something that's bigger, and we've seen those. And then I think there's, I wouldn't say indirect, but less direct ROI in the form of product insights, service insights, and sales opportunities that are being, sales opportunities, customer churn, all of that stuff. If you're able to treat these, understand that, treat it properly, access these customers, then you're able to also grow your business, which to me is a better outcome than the simple kind of like operational efficiency.
Yeah. And what are some of those kind of like typical insights then? You have mentioned risk and compliance. Like, what are some of the other things that are, if a company was just to come and just turn this on tomorrow, what would be the immediate things that they can get to?
So out of the box, all the different components or functions that they're doing now using manual listening, the agent valuation stuff, the compliance monitoring calls, all these red flags that they wanna surface, customer churn, all the various operational matrix is obviously there. On top of this, everything else that helps deliver value, better understanding the customer, better understanding opportunities. And I think a typical process would be, regardless of company size, we will see first month being kind of like system, kind of like fine tuning based on usage, based on the interactions that it is seeing. Second month and on, you'll start seeing very interesting pieces of data being surfaced, the platforms being proactive for you, surfacing information that you'd want to see, trends that you need to track, and so on.
And obviously, this is a solution that is presumably going to replace some existing solutions that might already be in play. But it's crucial that this integrates with the contact center, obviously. And contact centers these days are omni-channel, so they've got contact coming from multiple channels, voice, text, the whole kind of shebang. How do you integrate into those channels? Is it a case of just all contact is sent over to Hear.ai, or is there another way that you integrate where Hear.ai becomes kind of absorbed into the contact center of choice and everything happens within there? How does it integrate into a contact center?
So typically at the phase that we're in, this information is still sent to us.
Mm-hmm.
The nice thing about this is I think that in most cases, for the first time, contact centers are able to get a 360 view of their customer journey Because right now, digital is a little bit siloed and voice is a bit siloed, especially if it's hard to access, the information and understand the conversation there. But if you're able to, if it's easier to understand and analyze, and you can see the different path from digital to voice and so on, you're able to understand even why people will leave digital and go to voice, or the other way around. What didn't they find on the website, for example, or on the app if you have one? So it gives you that 360 view. We absolutely do not want to replace the contact center software or the telephony piece. We think that obviously this is much needed. This is mission critical, but we think that future value is in managing based on the actual data. The connectivity is important. You want to be reliable. You want to be scalable. You want to get these 5 nines, 6 nines, 7 nines out of the platform. But in reality, it's actually commoditized. All providers provide connectivity. It's just connectivity, and we think the value is in the actual data.
I agree. That's definitely where the value. I'm surprised that contact centers don't do more to do this themselves. To be totally honest, it seems to me that from what I've observed over the last few years, contact centers have just kept themselves supplying the plumbing, and conversational intelligence companies, conversational AI companies, all that stuff is all just stuff that sits on the outside, quality assurance, all that kind of stuff. It all just sits on the fringes of the contact center. The contact center platforms themselves just merrily crack on doing what they've always done, which is just like plumb everything together and make sure that calls are answered and messages get through. It seems, but then some of them try it. Like if you look at, like Genesis, for example, and AWS Connect, they've got, I wouldn't say anything like conversational intelligence, but if you wanted to get something close to at least figuring out why people are contacting, then there's ways that you can just upload 10,000 call transcripts and it'll do a job of topic modeling and stuff like that. It's very crude and not a very sophisticated way of doing it, because you can't really refine it. It just spits out something, and what you get is what you get, basically. So it's surprising that, I don't know if it's just because they've all moved to the cloud and they're trying to just figure that out, but there's a lot of stuff being left on the table, I think. But I'm assuming, when I'm talking about topic model, I'm assuming that Here does that as well, does it not? Like, can I run a report that will say, right, tell me, I know on the website it says that there's kind of like call it issue breakdown, but the issue, is that the same as an intent? If I call someone to freeze my bank card, or if I call to change my address, or I call to rebook an appointment, like all of those, the nature of the call is all that, I'm assuming all that's kind of tracked that can be reported on and stuff like that.
Yeah, of course. And I think I can't say to one. First of all, I'm sure that a lot of companies are investing in the space right now. I assume that we'll see more of that coming. But I think we also need to remember, for better or worse, our space is a little bit slow moving. That saying, the future is already there. It's just not evenly distributed.
Yeah.
So a lot that can be done today. However, most organizations in the contact center space are pretty traditional in their mindset, and with that, it is relatively slow moving. We're talking about digital transformation for so many years,
15 years.
and it's not that everybody's on the cloud still, or actually most companies are still not have not moved. So even though this futuristic technology is already there and can do incredible stuff, I guess it will take some time for a wider, massive adoption, for us to see that.
Yeah, and I think as well, contact centers, generally speaking, are more likely to be the kind of incremental type of, areas of a business. If you look at, as saying again, going back to the typical CCaaS providers, you look at what their positioning is on AI. I've been to a number of events in the back end of last year, and even actually the year before that, it hasn't changed very much. All the positioning from the contact center vendors is all about things like disposition code generation and call summarization. That's pretty much it. That's what they lead with. And I would say those are probably like the easiest things to do. Topic modeling, you could do that with Space. You don't even need language models to do that. And then summarization is bread and butter for any language model, So it's kind of like, it's like, yeah, it seems to be that moving incrementally is what most companies kind of do. But I concur with what you started off talking about, which was that, generative AI is a transformational technology. I think it opens up the opportunity to automate things that you probably wouldn't have even previously thought about doing. You wouldn't have thought about creating totally dynamic reports on the fly based on somebody just asking for something before, in the same way as you perhaps wouldn't have even thought about having something like what we've built an application here that this podcast is being transcribed right now, and this transcript will be sent into an application, and what it will do is it will just generate everything we need to publish the podcast: titles, descriptions, show notes, timestamps, like a summary article. Everything is just generated. That used to take somebody some effort to do, like probably a day or so's worth of effort, and I wouldn't have even thought about automating that. Whereas now it's just a click of a button, and we've got basically all the assets we need. Just needs proofreading and knocking into shape. So it's I agree. It's a transformative technology, but the industry itself is not a transformative type of industry, is it?
It is not. And CEO of Vonage when Over.ai was acquired was Alan Masarek, which then went on to be Avaya's CEO, and has now moved on to different things. But one of the things that he said, or that he was leading with during his time at Avaya, really resonated with me. And he was leading with innovation without disruption. I think this is something that's very accurate for our industry, but I think it's really important to understand that it is very doable today. The kind of applications and usage that we're discussing here today is actually something that you can get instantly, no disruption to your current business. We're not touching any moving parts. Hey, don't be scared. Nothing wrong could happen, right? But you are sitting on this pile of gold, amazing data. Let's work with that. Let's not ignore that huge asset that you have here waiting for you. Let's work with that. It's not going to create any disruption for your business, but it is going to drive massive innovation to how we work. And it's available today. Not trying to only promote. Sorry, I'm talking more on the mindset. Like
Yeah.
it is possible to be there today.
Yeah, definitely. So where do you think it's going then? Like, I don't like to do sort of like 5 years out predictions because things are changing so fast. But like, last time we spoke was 4 years ago. Things have changed pretty significantly since then. If we were to do this podcast, let's say in 12 months' time, and then again in 2 years' time or so, like in an industry that we've just said moves pretty slowly in the contact center world, and it's more iterative than it is transformative. What are some of the things that you think are going to be, either transformative or unavoidable, or trends that you're observing that you think can have a really big impact in the next kind of like 12, 18 months?
But when's the next time we're going to talk? It's going to be in 4 years. It's going to be 15th of January 29.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be before then, but if it is, it will be a nice little you get a cap actually next time. The third appearance is the hat trick. You get a nice gold VUX cap, so maybe we'll have to book it in before 4 years, but anyway.
Okay, so definitely more motivation to do it now. I think so. Okay, back at the Over.ai days when we've started this company, I imagined a future, and I think a lot of people did, a future where you have this call center that is a manager and this army. Imagine your army of bots doing everything for you, no people. That's it. I think what we saw in recent years, very recent years, is that AI is actually bringing something that's a little bit different to essentially every sector. AI is becoming something that's very hybrid with our the way that we work across every role. If you're a manager, if you're an agent, and also like other spaces and roles and verticals. So I think what we'll see AI becoming very hybrid across organization. Hybrid work, of course, lots of AI agents taking much more volume across the operation, but also humans working alongside AI in a form of search assistant and more advanced functionalities like that. We'll see co-pilots and hybrid work, such as our platform working with managers. So we'll see AI sort of like being part of every part of the organization, every role, every job, every function. With that, I think that this also increases the complexity of managing this kind of organization. If today managers, they need to deal with the headcount, which is a pretty hard task, but that's what it is. Now we're going to be managing people and technology, right? So different skills for managers there, entirely different tools that you will need in order to track that kind of operation, different complexity. So I think we'll see with this adoption of AI, companies are keen to adopt AI. So it is coming in. So I think the more we'll see these technologies coming in, we'll see increased complexity, and with that, I think the dynamics within the contact center will have to change.
Interesting. I like the idea of it being a value exchange and a value center. And the examples of AI working really well in the contact center do have that sort of lens to it. Like IKEA automated 50% of incoming calls, retrained the people that, you might think have been sacked, but they haven't. They've been retrained as interior designers, and now they're basically, their time is being sold to paying callers, basically. Landry's Casinos is another great example. They automated some kind of routine kind of tier one queries that meant that most of the calls that were hitting agents were all bookings and revenue generating calls. So it's all about kind of turning that. Yes, it's a value exchange between the customer and the business if you can get the insights from it that you can utilize to make the business better and become the best version of yourself. But it's also turning the contact center from something that drains resources to something that also gives back. So it's almost turning the contact center into a value exchange with the business. Rather than it being a drain, it's more of a radiator.
Absolutely. If I'm an executive in a contact center today, a large one, medium to large one, I guess even the smaller ones, your last statement is what I would take with me from this podcast. This mindset shift that it can be done, that we need to think about it like that, and because the smart organization, the organizations, the companies that actually grow are the ones that think like that. Cost saving is important, but this is not how we grow. This is not how we become more successful. And that growth mindset is what I would take with me, from this.
Brilliant. One final question. In a world where most of the interactions over time get absorbed by AI, so I think it's probably widely accepted that tier one support is going to disappear. AI is going to absorb all tier one support. As and if agentic AI gets more sophisticated and the tools become more readily available and the reliability problem is solved and this, that, and the other, and trust is there, maybe tier two starts to disappear at some point in the future. So the question is, for Hear.ai, is it that you will actually be dealing with less volume in future? Is the increased adoption of AI automation actually in future going to be something that's going to damage Hear.ai? Or is it that those conversations as well will also be part of the platform?
We're building the platform for the future, not for the current state. The complexity increase and the different kind of functionalities that we'll see, different dialogues with humans and with AI agents. And when we're talking about generative AI based agents, there's no one path. It's not the Over.ai bots that we're building, which knew how to run through one path, but also break when context changes and stuff like that. You have a natural language kind of conversation going on. You can predict exactly what's not going on over there. You can predict what the customer is actually saying. You would still want to monitor all these kind of interactions, and the platform becomes more valuable when this complexity increases. When you're analyzing human with bots interactions, human with human and AI hybrid interactions, text, voice, just human agents, all that stuff. So no, I don't think we'll be expecting less volume. Volume overall in the industry with population increase, with economic increase, volume overall only increases. We'll be there to monitor, to understand all different interactions across every channel. It doesn't really matter for us.
Wicked. Thank you, Noam, for spending the time with us. Appreciate it. So how can people find out about Hear.ai? Hear.ai, is that correct?
Yeah, Hear.ai, or hey, just if you're listening in to this, just message me or email me, Noam at Hear.ai.
Brilliant. We will include that in the show notes. And yeah, thank you again for spending some time with us. Maybe next time, number 3, the hat trick. We'll have to do that, definitely before 4 years. Let's not leave it so long next time.
Absolutely, I would love that.
Nice one. No, I'm fine. Appreciate your time, my friend. As always, definitely a fan of what I'm hearing here, and I'd love to give it a whirl if we can and see what it's all about. So thank you for joining us. Thank you all for paying attention and for tuning in, and we'll see you again on the next one. Thanks very much. Bye now.
Thank you.